Welcome back, everyone, and hello if you're new to this SAP Pi Data Accelerator webinar series. Today we're focusing on how to apply the Pi system and SAP PM data you connected last week to support maintenance. My name is Juanita and I'm part of the Element marketing team. And now I'd like to welcome our speakers. Our first speaker is no stranger to this series since he joined us last week. I'm happy to introduce him once again. Steve Beamer is our VP of Customer Success and guides customers on how to use Element Unify to scale operations efficiency using data. Not only does he have 30 years of experience in industry, he's also a former Element customer. Steve has experience leading a digital transformation effort at BP and has a deep understanding of operations excellence and the systems that support it. He's also had roles in site and executive leadership at companies such as ExxonMobil, Hess, and Peabody Energy. Our second speaker, Steve Ho, is a forward deployed engineer at Element, where he focuses on enabling customers to achieve operational excellence using Element Unify. He has an ME in chemical engineering and over 20 years of experience in operations, automation, and process safety in the chemicals industry. Steve has seen firsthand how connected data is critical to the success of data-intensive initiatives. Welcome, Steve and Steve. Beamer, now I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Juanita. So I'm going to briefly go over the agenda of what we're going to do today. I'm just going to remind everybody where we were last week. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my business experience. And then Steve's going to show you in the software how we connect the data to work. And he's going to show you the parts of some of the software that we did not see last week. We're going to have a couple poll questions spread throughout. And then at the end, we'll have some discussion and some Q&A with you. So first, Juanita is going to give us all a poll question to get us interested, get us going here.
All right, I'm launching the poll now. Please select your answers. We'd love to see where everyone is at, and we'll share the results briefly, just a few seconds for everyone to submit their responses. All right, poll is closed. Here are the results.
Okay, that's great. I mean, these are all the problems I encountered when I was doing this stuff too, right? It's cost prohibitive. We don't have the people, our people don't have the right experience. It's hard to get access to the data. So all of these things are problems that we've all run into. This slide that I showed last week, so I'm not going to go over it in detail as I did last week. I'm just going to remind everybody that Element Unify integrates, adds context to data, helps you govern and manage your models, and stores that information in a knowledge graph. And last week we integrated and contextualized some data. This week we're going to show you how we put that data to work using the knowledge graph and a little bit of how we can govern and tell the quality of the data. So, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience and, what I tried to do when I was in the big company, and what I advise our customers to do is to think big, start small, and go fast. So in my case, we had a first initiative that was to put together OSI Soft Pi and SAP data to implement the Baker Hughes product called Predix. And we titled that internally Plant Operations Advisor. And our CEO at the time, who's now the CEO of the company and the CEO of Baker Hughes, got together and they decided we were going to do something big together, and this was it. And they went out to the market and said, we're going to put this on 44 offshore platforms in 24 months. So guess who got that job? Thank you very much, me. So while Baker Hughes was configuring the software for our application, we were gathering the data for the pilot site. And we used 3 engineers full-time for 5-6 months. And basically took us 18 person months to compile that data in Excel to feed the software. And so, 6 of 24 months are gone now, and I have 43 assets remaining that I need to deploy. So what we did then is said, we really need some help. So my CIO and I went to our partners, to Microsoft, to OSI Soft, and to a few of our smaller partners and said, how do we do this? And at that point, they pointed us to Element. We went out and talked to them. They brought in a single engineer using Element Unify, produced our data model in 4 weeks, and they interacted with our engineering team only about 4 to 6 hours a week. So it opened up my eyes completely to a new way of doing things. And at the time, this was around 2017, the only project we had on the books was the Baker Hughes Plant Operations Advisor. But after we successfully deployed that, other things came along. So what else came along was these other projects you see below, and I won't go into those projects, but each of those needed that OSI soft data and they needed that SAP data, and then they needed something else. So they needed alarm and event data from PAS. They needed safety data, which we had on spreadsheets. They needed limits and things that were in P&IDs. But we were quickly able to add those to the existing model with the idea of model once, consume everywhere, and deliver all these projects first on a single asset, and then to quickly scale them out across the company. So that was a huge success for me, and it taught me that there's a different way to do things. And just to mention the cost, it would have cost me $13 million to do it by hand. It would have taken 8 years. We did this for $4 million, including the cost of the software. Most of the cost was the people driving the software, and we deployed in 2 years. So to me, this was a huge success, and that's why I came to work for Element after I retired. So I'm going to turn it over now to Steve Ho, who's going to explain what he's going to take you through this week, and we're going to go straight into the software. Steve?
Thank you and welcome everyone. In the prior webinar, we showed you how to use Unify to connect the Pi and SAP. So I'm going to carry forward from where we left off in the first webinar of the series. I'm going to show you how we use the Unify model coverage to validate your data model, and also how to use the Unify Asset Explorer to review the hierarchy available in your data model. And finally, I'm going to show you how to use the analytic tool of your choice to connect, unify, and populate this very dashboard. Now, what I'm showing is the pipeline page from the first webinar series. And this is where we show you how you would connect your maintenance record as well as your data historian records and bring them together. The connection was made possible of the data historian record with the maintenance record because, as you see in the description of the Pi metadata, they had the identifier that matches the equipment as a fragment of functional location from the maintenance system. We often find that it's useful to layer in additional data sets, such as one extracted from the piping implementation diagram. Fortunately, this data set already has it, but if you didn't, Elements Unify P&ID productivity tool allows you to quickly extract, contextualize, and make useful information straight off the drawing itself. Furthermore, this gives you an option to introduce quality at a very early stage in the process, letting you reach in and tap into the knowledge of your subject matter expert early, reducing the risk of rework due to potential data quality issue. Now, going back to the pipeline, the whole data flow goes from left to right, where we started adding context, like what are the equipment out there, what the inventory of them, how are they named, what sensor associated to each equipment, and what attributes can we assign them to. On this pipeline, on the right here, I'm actually using two possible output types. The first on the top branch is labeled element graph. This is going to be used by the downstream features within Unify. The second, which is just below, I'll briefly go back to this one, but it's used for preparing outputs when you want to reuse it in another pipeline or you want to integrate it with your own analytic tool of choice. So let's explore the features that are based off the element graph. The first of which is the model coverage report. This page it helps you because your use case typically will have some type of KPI or visualization that you want to show. The model coverage report gives you instant validation and confirmation whether your data set supports this use case, or if it doesn't, will I need more information? If my data sets have some gap. If so, what do I need to ask? And more importantly, that also determines who you need to ask. So in this particular example, we have compressors and pumps. And we see that in our template, we have defined 13 attributes. However, the average attribute coverage is in the 20%, where it's about 2 to 3 attributes for each out of the 13 for each individual equipment. So the reality here is that industrial analytics, you need to consider the different levels of installed instrumentation. So let's find out more of what this data is showing us. We see here that of the 13 attributes, we have very high coverage in both current and power. And so for our example, we're going to say we're okay because we're going to focus on uptime of continuous running machine. You can also go further deeper, one level deeper, and drill down into a particular attribute and find out exactly how many of so equipment you have. So in this case, how many compressors you have, and if so, which one are mapped and which one are not. So this capability of Unify will help you detect and prevent surprises early in the process so you can timely address it. Moving along, I want to show you how easy it is to build hierarchy with the Asset Explorer. Hierarchies are an important part of not only because of slicing and dicing the view, but also how you may roll up the KPI from benchmarking and reporting. So Unify lets you easily shape the hierarchy level to fit your requirements. So I'm going to start off with a SAP hierarchy. And so while I build this hierarchy, you can see that the Asset Explorer is interactive. And as you're building the hierarchy, the data starts flowing in, giving you an instant preview of how the data is in your model right now. And so it lets you validate it early before you save it. I'm gonna add a few more layers.
And what you see there is it's populating as Steve builds it out.
And so this lets you confirm that the hierarchy will be useful for what you want to do in your equipment dashboard. Thinking of which, we need to go back to the equipment dashboard use case. So earlier we showed you, so at this stage we have confirmed that both the model coverage and the Asset Explorer, that we have sufficient data to use to build our dashboard. So what I'm going to show you is how you can connect this dashboard, connect this data and put it into your own dashboard. So we can take the connection detail that we have from the second output and go to this equipment dashboard. Now this particular dashboard, I have already built it out with the raw data. So I have work order detail and time series. And the dashboard can populate when I paste in the data from Unify. In this particular dashboard, we're going to have sensor data for the trend, as well as and you see that the asset attribute are only going to be filtered for the attributes that we know that's already available from our review and model coverage. The SAP hierarchy we validated earlier from Unify. The machinery, inventory, and work order table can now be used to filter off this hierarchy, as well as Power BI is able to use the data model now and calculate dynamically the mean time between failure and time since last failure KPI. So now we have a dashboard that mirrors the initial design. And using Unify, we dropped in a useful data set that is prepared and contextualized with all the relationship you need to keep the KPI code simple and drive the dynamic visualization. So I showed you how you would use unified feature to validate a connected data model with Pi and SAP, and ultimately apply that output into using your own tools of choice.
So Steve, when we worked together in my old assignment and you were building dashboards like this for me, how long do you think that typically takes to build a dashboard like this, to contextualize the data and configure the Power BI and then bring the data together into a live dashboard that users could see?
Oh, not long at all, Steve. So this could be done in a day or two with the right subject matter expert. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to get to know the data and then wrap it up into a pipeline. About just as long to tie that into an output that you put into a dashboard. The key though is to maintain focus toward building out the initial dashboard report using the best quality data you have access to, and thinking big and starting small. Get a useful view up front to the ones that can benefit, confirm the business value, and collect valuable feedback for the next iteration.
That's fantastic. Okay, I think Juanita's got another poll question for us, and then we'll kind of move into questions and answers and further discussion.
All right, the poll is launched. Please select your responses and we'll give you about 25 seconds before we share the results. Thank you. Here are the results.
Okay, so once again, people want to reduce downtime. That's fantastic. Everybody wants to save money or produce more. I didn't see really anybody say I want to produce more, but I think, that goes along with reducing downtime by predicting failures. So I think this is very common amongst all organizations. So the first question oh, sorry, go ahead, Juanita.
No, go ahead. I was actually going to pose a question, but please go ahead, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, no, I can see it. So how can I convince my leadership that I need something like this? Well, that's a great question, because the leadership always wants you to demonstrate that, there's going to be some value there before they're willing to try anything or spend any money. But, one way to do that is we have a free trial that you can take, and you can demonstrate some quick results like Steve just showed you to help get your leadership interested. One of the things I had to do in my old job was I had to really go explain to the executive team what this does, and it's quite difficult because we're all thinking in the old mentality of these individual systems have their own data structure, and I had to bring data into Excel, and then I had to figure out how to put it together with some engineers, and then we always had mistakes, and then things changed. So part of that was using some of those quality features that Steve showed you to be able to show the people that, when I give you a dashboard and I build it this way, you're always going to have the right information. You're going to know what's in that dashboard. And then just the cost savings. I mean, when we did this, we saved in 6 years and $9 million. So that was alone enough to convince the company that this was the right way to go. But if you're not in a situation like that, it can be more challenging. But I'd encourage you to get your IT people together, get your business users together, and then collaborate to sell the management team, because it's hard for management to say no when a group of people comes together and asks them. It's easy for them to say no to one person. So build your network, get your peers engaged in the other departments that would benefit from this, and go as a team to your management team and say, hey, we really need to do this. Will you help us? So I've got another question for Steve, and that is, tell us about how the end users perceive this software. When you're able to give them a dashboard like you just showed us, how do the end users engage with you?
That's a good one, Steve. We find that the different type of end user, but we find that the end user that are reviewing the final output, they can really thrilled to get something fairly soon, and actually can inspect what they asked for and see if they actually got what they asked for. and provide really good feedback. Or users of Unify are really happy because they actually like using the visual pipeline because it makes them really, it can bring the user really close to the data where it's very accessible, especially to non-coders. It's easy to maintain, and it also allows you to reuse the pipeline when you start laying in additional data sets and other use cases.
Fantastic. And so my experience was when we did this at the previous company, we had a lot of infrequent users of SAP and pulling Pi data out of the different systems. We'd have a user that's in a central job that's supporting more than one asset, and they didn't every day go and pull data out of SAP or pull data out of Pi. So they always had a bit of a relearning every time they wanted to go get that data for troubleshooting or for comparison of one site to another. And once we gave them the dashboards, they were suddenly, they never had to go back to SAP. They didn't have to go into Pi. They could just pull it up using the hierarchies from the dashboard and do their troubleshooting. So, we did this with some safety reporting that was required in the Gulf of Mexico. And prior to putting the Power BI dashboard up, a user was putting together 27 different spreadsheets from different data sources across 4 assets to build a report that had to go to the government. And we automated that and put it in a Power BI. So we took his workload from 2.5 weeks a month to basically the push of a button. And it was fantastic. And we found that other users started coming there to get the information to help them do their troubleshooting. So I've got another question in the queue that says, can I import my existing structures, hierarchies into the hierarchy builder? Steve, would you like to take that?
Yes, we accept, if you saw the first webinar, we accept all types of data types, so you can definitely import it and then publish straight out to the graphs and then use the hierarchy builder right away. And you're not limited to just an existing or a single hierarchy. So this is very useful if you want to have different types of roll-ups and accesses. So you can do like geographic, type of service environment, manufacturer, make, model, commercial business, and so forth.
Yeah, so you don't need to throw away any of your existing work, no matter what form it's in, whether it comes in Excel or if it comes in PyVision or some other format. We can start from that work and bring it into the pipeline, integrate it with other data, and apply it to both old and new applications. So several of our customers have actually started using Unify to manage their asset framework libraries in Pi. Okay, so I think we've got maybe time for one more discussion point, and I think what I'd like to close with is, this is a different way of thinking about things. The fact that we have this knowledge graph and the way the software works is completely different. So it's really hard to get across to people what this does without them seeing it. And in my case, after having spent 3 months building the first data set with 3 engineers, it was unbelievable to me that a single engineer with very little interaction with my team, who didn't know my assets, could come in and build that entire data set in under 4 weeks. So, there's a bit of show versus tell that I think is helpful getting people across this, because, if I came into your organization, as a leader from another big organization who had done this, and I told your leaders, yeah, that project you've been working on for 6 months that you haven't been able to get across the line, you could probably get it done in about 3 weeks, they wouldn't believe me. And if somebody had come to me, I wouldn't have believed it either. So, I think take advantage of what we're offering, take a free trial, take a look at the software, and let us help you do this the first time. And I will be happy to come and help you convince your management team that this is the right way to go. And with that, I'm going to hand back over to Juanita, who's going to close us out. And I really appreciate your attendance today.
Thank you so much, Bima. Very, very good final notes. In terms of next steps, quick reminder that we do have the final webinar in this series coming up next week on Wednesday. That will be April 14th, 12:30 p.m. EDT for you West Coasterners and 3:30 EDT, 3:30 p.m. EDT for East Coast. We look forward to seeing you then. As Steve mentioned, Steve Beamer, we do have Element Unify available to try for 30 days. You can put your request on our website and we'll be happy to fulfill that. If you have more questions and we were not able to get to them today, or you'd like to, you have follow-up questions or would just like to connect with our speakers, please send us an email at marketing@elementanalytics.com and I will make sure that those get routed to our speakers who spoke today. You can also engage with us on LinkedIn, ask questions there, connect with our speakers, and generally we're happy to discuss any of the topics related to digital transformation. Thank you so much for your time and your attendance, and we hope that you have a good rest of your day. See you next week. Bye.